Hey everybody, welcome in for another video. So we're going to be talking about the Horus Heresy. I'm going to be talking about the new Horus model that was unveiled at the Nova Open. And I'm going to roll through the video that they used to preview the new model. And again, I love the new model. I think it's way better than the old one. And it generally has me excited to kind of more collect these ones because a lot of those forgeworld models, Fulgrim, I hate. I just despise them. I think they chose poor moments to imagine the Primarchs. Like, again, Fulgrim as the example, I understand that him fighting Ferrus Manus is very important, and that was the time period that they were focusing on when they released those models. But to permanently have him in that screaming face when he's supposed to be the most beautiful Primarch, like, I thought the armor was well done, but it was just, that's one example where I was like, that was a miss from me. And that was kind of at the start where it was Angron and then those models that came out. And I was excited, but I wanted Fulgrim to be my first Primarch model, and I obviously didn't get it because I don't care for it. But maybe there'll be an Ascended version of Fulgrim that will come out that I'll really like, because again, in this style, this is much more 40k, and that seems to be the direction that Horus Heresy is moving in. Because again, when we talk about the timeline of Horus Heresy, we've kind of moved past everything. This is the Siege of Terra. This is what the microcosm is focused in on, is that battle. And the models that are coming out kind of reflect that in the time period in terms of how they look and the aesthetics, where they're, again, moving more towards having more ornate armor, like victory, like trophies, talismans, what have you on the models. Where before it was only a few legions that had stuff like that, you know, like the Space Wolves, for instance, would their models would be a lot more decorative than the other legions in terms of even their basic troops. But this reveal in the video immediately, I hate to say it, but I called all of this, that this was going to happen, and it really is the final nail in the coffin for forgeworld players, I think, of Horus Heresy, because a lot of people were like, oh, well, at least you've still got some squads and stuff. And again, those you can still play, but as like what I've heard so far through people playing is that obviously all the new stuff that just came out is better than any of that old stuff, as far as I know. That might not be the case with all of the legions with some of their special units, but people are kind of focusing in on the dreadnoughts, right? Like the new Leviathan dreadnought model came out from Games Workshop. It's sold out. It's an amazing model in the game now. And I think that we'll see that pivot into whatever the new thing that's coming out will just be automatically the best thing for Horus Heresy for a long time, with all of these releases that are coming out in plastic. But the main thing I want to talk about is in the video what is discussed. So I'm going to be pausing it as we're watching it to talk about what is, I guess, previewed here.
Horus is the first and favored son of the Emperor. He's one of 18 demigods that were created to conquer the galaxy in the name of mankind. He embodied all of the best qualities that the Emperor himself had. He was an incredibly charismatic individual. He was a military genius, highly competent. The hosts of mankind would follow him literally into the gates of hell.
So for, like, again, this is a much better model than the old Forgeworld one. It was very kind of stoic, and it was very much Horus before he turned, right? Again, the focus on a lot of those models was at a weird time period, or like, where are they kind of thing, where if you're using the model in game, it just looked weird, like Gilliman on that, like, what was meant to be a marble kind of plinth. Very strange. But this kind of dials it up the other way, where this is just showing the wrecked battlefield, which is more in line with what it should be. And again, I think this is a much better model than the old Forgeworld model. In every single term of it, it's just, it's more on point with, again, corrupted Horus, and the posing and the movement to it is just a lot better, I think, overall. Like, you can still, the old model had its cues, but I think that that's a model that now you definitely paint as a Luna Wolf version of Horus, where this is now him corrupted and leading his sons of Horus.
Hell.
Like, it's great.
He was put in charge of all of those armies when the Emperor retreated to Terra to undertake his own great work. The fates rested too heavily on his shoulders. The ruinous powers, the forces of chaos, looked upon this individual and they said, this is our opportunity, this is the weapon, this is the tool that we can use against the Emperor. And at the planet Davin, the War Master was injured and he was taken to the Davinite lodges, the temples, in order to be healed by the Davinite lodge priests. And it was during that ritual healing that chaos started to worm its way into his soul.
So again, when they're talking about this timeline, because this is what everyone focuses on and is so important in Horus Heresy, like Angron, for instance, in the timeline, very early on in the heresy, turns into a demon Primarch. Now, he gets kind of more corrupted over time, but for instance, again, you can use any of them as an example, really, where like Fulgrim gets the four arms going, right? And you've got Mortarion when he shows up to Terra, he is Mothwings, right? Like they are demon Primarchs. They're not, I guess, as powerful because again, the warp infuses them over time and then they stay in the warp for longer periods and absorb more of that energy. But when people are saying, well, that's not lore appropriate for Horus Heresy to use the 40k models, you are so wrong. The like Death Guard models that I have when I was talking about subbing them out, which I'm still going to do with my friends just to try the game, they're way more lore appropriate now. Like when the Death Guards show up to the Siege of Terra, their guts are hanging out. They have Nurglings running around them. Like they are now corrupted. The ships aren't as like infected as they are later in 40k, and they get even worse as time goes on. But they are very much almost at that point where they're kind of the 40k versions of these legions, right? The Thousand Sons are kind of the most still 30k at this time, where they're still arranged in that same fashion. They're not all the Rubricae yet. And I think they're probably the only legion that falls into that category where there's still many, many changes to happen. But again, with Horus and these models coming out where people thought, okay, well, the forgeworld stuff will still be relevant, right? So that thought process, and this model may be made by forgeworld, I don't know yet, but it's just funny where they're just re-upping, right? Like they want you to get the new stuff, like that old collection you have, that old army of forgeworld, they want you to put that away because you need to get this stuff now. So let's keep watching.
He appeared to be the same, only he'd switched sides. He'd led this great rebellion against the Emperor. And then we get to a point 3 years into the heresy where Horus undergoes a transformation and experiences a literal and metaphorical period in the underworld. When he comes back, he's ascended. He's essentially the same model, the same design, the same character, but every single point of him has been rendered in a way that makes it look like he is swollen with the powers of chaos.
Which is, again,
it's bigger,
timeline
it's
accurate.
darker, it's more powerful, it's more evil. There's a narrative, there's a story that is moving onwards towards its final destination, which happens at the Siege of Terra. Horus Ascended is the ultimate power-up for your army. He takes everything that's great about your army and magnifies it. It makes it more spectacular in battle, it makes it braver, it makes it more, frankly, demonic. It powers up everything about your army and it forms the ultimate centerpiece.
So again, so it powers up your army. So the rules for the old Horus Heresy, the old Horus model, will be like there, and you can still use that model. But when people kind of come at other people within the community for Horus Heresy, where they're saying no, like again, for instance, my converted Demon Prince model, where I used Conrad Kurz as the base, and he has demon wings and a helmet, and I was like, well, I'll just use him in 30k and just, use that model. And it was like again, we had someone comment, and like to each their own. I always say that, like, if you're having fun with the hobby, go for it. But someone's like, well, you have to remove the wings to play 30k. Well, no, I don't. I'm going to play my friends. I would never ever do that. That's crazy. I put so much time and effort into that model that asking that is wild to me. Like I would never ask someone who really put time into a model to take stuff off of it, right? But again, that's I feel like the mentality of Horus Heresy, where before it was very, don't use your 40k stuff. No, we're using forgeworld stuff. It's going to be these types of models. It's this sort of aesthetic, and it was different. Now it's interchangeable. The 30k and 40k is becoming the same. They've really, again, centered on this, and now we're going to get into the scouring, right? Where if they continue the book series, and they haven't said if they're going to, where after the Siege of Terra is the Scouring, where the loyalists chase the traitors into the Eye of Terror, right? Like they go on, they just destroy so much stuff on the way out, right after they lost, where the war doesn't really end after that, right? Like the Emperor's Children, I think, are the worst for that, where they just were kidnapping whole systems of people on the way out, right? And Perturabo was building fortresses that Dorn had to go take out, and there's lots of content you can do there, but those are, again, Primarchs imbued with the chaos, right? And the legions will look very different. And it's just kind of exactly what I called out before, where this is going to move into this, right? Where we're going to see more and more new models, which again would be fine if it was more edition stuff, but I think it's going to be a lot like this where, and I'm excited for it. I prefer this, right? Like, let's go this version of Horus. Right? I want to get this version of Horus, right? This version is crazy. It's so cool. But when they're talking about powering up your army, that's a direct correlation on the rule on the game, saying that this model will make your army more powerful than that old model. And again, when I was being told that I can't use this representation stuff, Horus Heresy players are going to tell people who have the old Horus model, no, you can't use that. You need to use this one. So it's just this weird crossover in between where that mentality is now kind of, I think, screwing people over who were saying it, where now you're kind of making it so you're going to have to buy these newer 40K looking models, right? Very different looking, but I'm more in it for this kind of stuff myself. But again, that's just me. A lot of people like that old version of Horus Heresy and the old aesthetic, which is fine. It's whatever you like. That's, go for it, right? Like, make that army, make it cool.
Horus isn't the only Primarch to have ascended, and
they're going to do the rest.
Scope for other Primarchs to go through a similar process, and maybe there's more models in the future that will do the same thing.
I'm assuming it will be forgeworld that still makes this, but you never know. This could come out in plastic and be a Games Workshop thing. It's hard to tell because they're still releasing resin models for forgeworld even through all of this, right, with some of the Praetors and the characters. So, and a funny thing that I don't know if anyone else talked about this, but I noticed it right away. All of the dead Marines on here were painted in salamander colors, and I don't know of a specific battle really where it's like, oh no, Horus ripped through a bunch of salamanders per se. Like, it could have happened, but I think that this was just a slight to someone at the studio, that whoever painted this Horus, the person that they fight, right, all the time in Horus Heresy plays salamanders, so they were like, you know what, salamanders, dead salamanders on the base. And I thought that was great, right? Like, realistically, it would have been cool to see one of each one of the loyalist legions, like a backpack, everything, to show Horus trouncing all of them, but it's just salamanders on that base, so no one really mentioned that, which I thought was funny. So here we have the comparison of the old and the new. Again, we've got the Luna Wolf symbol on the right shoulder guard, or sorry, leg guard, knee pad. And here we have this slight variation where it's been changed to be another Eye of Horus. The armor has been slightly tweaked a bit, but not too much. But again, the head looks better. The old head was, I didn't care for it at all. And the sizing of it, where the chest was at a weird scale to the body, where this is scaled perfectly. And it's still, again, they're both on ruins, but this is more Horus kind of, I feel like, leading the Luna Wolves pre-heresy, right? That's what that model says to me. This is a Horus who's destroying the Imperium, right? We'll see. If this is a GW model, I might get it, right? If it's a forgeworld, I probably wouldn't pick it up, but if it's a GW plastic, I would probably grab it because it's an awesome model and it would be fun to paint. But please let me know in the comments what you think of this rant about Horus Heresy. I am about to pick up those things and start my Horus Heresy journey. So I've been kind of on the outskirts, but I am, in probably a day or two, going to start picking stuff up and get that small little kind of starting force that I planned out for it, and then go from there and kind of build some stuff out. I'm going to start again with some troops, and it's not what you think. I'll be doing videos about what I got, where I got it from, and why I got it later on. But this is just, it's tough because it's a real change to Horus Heresy where it's on a fundamental level. The game is changing, and I feel like all the new people who just picked it up are really stoked on this, and you'll still have the divide with the old players. But let me know in the comments what you think. I really do appreciate everybody who comments and get some discussion going about the Horus Heresy, right? Because it's tough viewing it from the outside, because right now I haven't played a game of this yet, and I know people who have been playing it, and I've heard kind of mixed reviews on it, where they're like, well, it's like third, fourth kind of thing edition, but it plays well. Some old people who played Horus Heresy before saying that they really don't like it anymore. It's tough to gauge, right? And I'm not really got my finger on the pulse for the community at the moment, so maybe I'll try and get more involved as I get my own squad together. But I'm generally excited because I think this model's better, right? And some people will think the old model is better and that this is a move in the wrong direction, but it's tough because, again, Horus Heresy had, like, it flopped out basically, right? Like, it could have gone the way of Old World and just been like, okay, well, we'll finish off the Primarch, like some models and characters and then kind of call it. But they've really gone for revitalized Horus Heresy, so we'll have to see what the future has in store. Again, let me know in the comments of everything that I have said. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you have a different opinion? Just let me know. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It helps me out so much. I'll see everybody in some more videos. There's going to be a ton of Horus Heresy stuff coming out, so stay tuned. Thanks.